thought she really liked mine, and that I was saying things, and she was like, yeah. But then no one else talked about it, and we never elaborated on it anymore, so then I was worried that she thought, well, like, yeah, that's really obvious. And I sounded stupid. I don't think I sounded stupid. I was talking about something important. Maybe no one else cared. Some of the words that, like, it's so funny, the women started with were like, fear, anxiety, feelings, and then I just thought it was funny.
Because they're women?
And then they came down to, like, order, hierarchy, blah, 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 blah.
Was that the men that wanted the order and the hierarchy?
Yeah, but then it became a mixture.
How many men are in your class compared to women?
Actually, this one's more balanced than last night.
Oh,
This
that's
one,
good.
There's Carol, Jennifer. I love it because I already know people.
So you'd write down 5 words
Yeah.
that it meant to you?
From the book, that kind of, because the book is called 15th Century Attitudes.
Uh-huh.
So it's supposed to be 5 words that kind of encompass, or that explain part of the 15th century.
Did you already say your 5 words to me?
No, mine were like, the one I talked about was materiality, and no one else talked about it.
What do you mean materiality?
And it was in a lot of the chapters, so that's why I thought it was really interesting and important. So in the death chapter, it was about things that are important. If you were worried about, like, your soul in purgatory and you want it to be not in purgatory, then you could leave in your will, like, clothing for, like, little saints or the Virgin to wear, and that would, like, be good for your soul.
Because why?
Or you could leave your wedding ring, like this one woman left her wedding ring for the statue of the Virgin Mary to wear. It's kind of like an indulgence thing. It's just these things are important, and then you're showy, but it's not necessarily bad. So, like, things are important. Relics, where you're buried. So if you're buried near the nave, you're more important than if you're buried out in the churchyard.
So that's like where they bury the poor people.
Well, they kind of buried poor people in mass ditches.
Like the Jews?
Or just all the people who kept dying. It's the Black Death.
Is the Black Death different than the bubonic plague?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, but maybe it is.
I act like I know about history, but I really don't.
Well, that's the funny thing. Or it will be like, I really don't know, because I don't know about a lot of time periods. And people ask for questions in class, and it's just like, that's a good question.
That's how John and Marilyn are when they talk about stuff. They're like, nobody really knows, blah, blah, blah.
In the aristocracy, if you went in, like, in a procession as a lord into the village or something, and you tossed up coins in the air, and you seemed really generous and kind of lavish with your wealth, it didn't mean, like, oh, you're showy. That wasn't a bad thing. It meant you're a good lord. You're somebody I would want to work for.
You're like a rich Robin Hood.
It's just interesting, like, oh, you're good to the people. The book equated it to business lunches now.
Is it similar to the way
and,
that
perks in your job?
Is it similar to the way that a king is supposed to be good to his subjects?
Yes. But they weren't actually just throwing random amounts of money. They were really calculating, and they would see how much they could afford to throw out to people or to give away or whatever at home.
The 10%.
To make sure they could, like, not go bankrupt. Yeah, it was interesting.
Like the 401cs, or what are those things called? the charities today?
Yeah.
The non-profits that make a profit?
These things that we think of, oh, money's bad, or if you're rich, it's bad. Like, it wasn't bad. And land is important, and it was important for the churches.
To have land?
Yeah.
For what? To grow food, or to bury people? Or both?
Both,
and to build the church?
To have, well, like, having land made you seem... Like, people, there was a merchant class rising, so people were making money, and some people were becoming as wealthy as noblemen, and, like, the gentry, but they didn't actually... They weren't considered the same, because they didn't have the land. So land was kind of like the symbolic... It's like Downton.
What you're saying is you need a Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I was going to say that right before you said that.
Was messing with my head. Like, I know Downton Abbey is, like, much later, and it's fictional. This is England. They don't change very much. So I use my word materiality because, the other thing about being buried was that you could be buried. It was good to be buried if you were, like, in front of an image of a saint. but it's even better if you could be buried in view of a relic. So, like, it was just these tangible things. And the religion chapter drove me nuts because the author was extremely judgmental about it.
About what? The materiality?
They lost the heart of their religion. It was weird. I was like, maybe that's just what their religion is. It's not possible that he's this, like, evangelical whatever.
He's a Zwingli.
Because he's a historian from the UK. He should, like, know his stuff.
Are you sure he's not Dutch?
But his bias was awful.
He sounds like an iconoclast.
Yeah.
Like Zwingli.
I hated that chapter. She told us she doesn't want to, like, attack her books. And then Pam looked up. It was funny.
Pam Beasley? Was Jim there? It's the only thing I think of when I hear the word Pam.
Pam.
So, obviously, today's world, evangelicals have lost that materiality.
Not just evangelicals.
You think even the Catholics have lost it?
No. I was just going to say, like, Protestant churches.
Do you think it was the Reformation that lost the materiality of it all?
Seems to be.
And it all became just sandwich substitution? I don't know that much about Luther.
Interesting. A lot. See, some of the essays wanted to go ahead to the Reformation, but that's not the time period.
There are times when, because I don't know that much about Luther, so I'm talking out. There are times when I put like someone like Luther and O'Reilly in the same camp, in the sense that they were like extreme for their day, and they seemed to like the attention. / they really felt. Actually, O'Reilly's probably not a good example. I can't think of a good example of a comparison, but like he really, really did care about the things that like he was trying to fix, but he was sort of looking at it in a narrow way and not realizing that there was 1,500 years of history before him that he could look to for help, but he didn't. He just shot the shotgun, so to speak.
Yeah. I learned something interesting from Carol today.
What did you learn?
That Gutenberg, champion of the Reformation, printing press, blah, 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 made most of his money printing indulgence papers.
Really?
Isn't it awesome?
I thought he wrote the Bible. Didn't Gutenberg write the Bible?
You know that Wycliffe was whatever the actual term is for unearthed from his grave eventually, and his bones were like burned, and then he was like tossed into a stream because by then he was a heretic.
They dug him back up to throw him in a river?
To burn his yeah.
So like there is no.
Because he was contaminating the church.
So wait, he was buried as a Catholic?
Yeah.
But the Catholics said no, you have to leave, even though you're dead?
Yeah.
So even the dead can haunt the...
The hierarchy is the same too.
Even the dead can contaminate the...
And the higher up you are in the world, then like the higher up you would be in heaven.
So does his getting thrown out of the graveyard get him thrown out of heaven as well? Is it a double dipping?
Yeah.
They can...
There's no need to like save his stuff because he's in hell. But they cared about people who had a history of being crazy. And they thought, like, because, if you committed suicide, then you couldn't go to heaven.
Yeah.
But
I told that to my students today. I don't know why that came up in class, but it did. Probably because we're talking about the Enlightenment and how the Enlightenment thinkers didn't necessarily leave the church, but they got pretty close if they didn't.
Interesting.
/ they didn't. They were really into natural law.
Yeah.
Could.
There was one woman who killed herself, but they decided that because she had a history of madness, that there was no need to exclude her from a church burial.
So I was right. I was telling my students something like that, and I wasn't sure if I was right.
Isn't that cool, though? That's like 1400s.
I was saying that, like, it's controversial still, like, because, like, are you going to deny a crying mother her son's burial for something that she probably feels partly responsible for? / it was something that she could have never fixed. Like, sad. Like, you're going to deny and I often wonder if there were priests who were like, we're going to bury their son or daughter over there. Have you heard of things like that where anything like that has ever happened?
No, but I just read my own book of essays. But I did learn that in the church there is the most opportunity for advancement. You could be like nothing.
And move your way up.
Literally nothing. And move your way up.
So church, so it wasn't Adam Smith. It was the church that invented capitalism. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was just, well, because people could advance then.
Oh, it was like the original
university and their business schools.
It was like the original bureaucracy.
They were learning accounting. Those people who went to university were becoming lawyers. Yeah, but I like the church bit. It's really cool. And like you could be from the poorest family, but if like for choristers, if you were a little boy who had like a great voice, you could go far.
Little boys could go far in the Catholic Church?
Danny.
Yeah.
It just meant that it's cool if you could sing well, even though you came from nothing, in a place where it really mattered, like what your station was. Where it was bad if you did something above or below your station. People were advancing, but they didn't, the nobility didn't like people who used their new money to act out of place.
It reminds me of Gatsby with the new money and the old money. It reminds me of everything in Britain.
I like learning about England. It makes me happy.
You know that thing that I was saying about the priests and wondering if they would ever bury a suicidal person in a burial? I also sometimes wonder if there was any Nazis who, instead of killing the Jew, let him go free or something, like let him run, like saw him running away and just let him run away or something. Well, there's lots of situations like that, but like, or like in the Civil War, if there was ever like a moment between a Union soldier and a Confederate soldier, they let them go. Kind of like that story that always gets told in the evangelical churches about how there was that day in no man's land when they stopped fighting on Christmas Day or something, and all had tea on the whatever. And it sounds made up, but it makes you cry anyways. Yeah.
Frau Osborne said it was something like eye for an eye. Oh, it was this morning in Western Civ, because she went really briefly over what's civilization, like where civilization came from. So it was this really, really brief overview of ancient Near East. And what you really need to know from Babylon right now is that there's Hammurabi, and that was our first, maybe, probably, surviving written law. And there was something about, she tries to make analogies, and she says most of the time she makes them for her own amusement, so they might not help. She hopes they help students, but they keep her amused, so if she messes them up, she apologizes. But one example was about like eye for an eye, or like if you did something that caused someone else to die, then you'd be killed too. So her example was like, well, we live in Southern California, earthquake area. If a contractor made your house really badly, well, now you'd probably just sue him if someone got hurt. But then, like, if there's an earthquake and someone died, then the contractor would die too. And then I was thinking about the whole...
Would it be, like, vengeful, or would it just be like, that's just what's going to have to happen?
She made it kind of seem like that's what's going to have to happen.
Interesting.
And it made me think of the whole, like, love thy neighbor as you love yourself thing. And it would be like a much more serious thing if it was that serious.